So this is the email tool that I'm going to be demoing tonight. You can find it at email.yogareach.com.au. Don't worry about that other bit at the end there. That's the actual link. It works like that. Email.yogareach.com.au. So that's the login. Tonight, for the purposes of demonstrating this, I'm going to use my Yahoo email address, one of many email addresses I have. And I'm also using the password email rocks exclamation mark. Of course it rocks. Email rocks. So you can go and check this out if you like. So you can go to email.yogareach.com.au, put in brook212000@yahoo.com and the password email rocks exclamation mark, and you can give it a go. So you then click on the login button. And we are in. So this is a totally new account that I've just set up today. So there's nothing in it apart from the design template, the email design template. There's no list there yet. So that's the first thing we're going to do together. So what I did tonight is I created a folder called May eNews for the purposes of demonstrating this, and I've got webinar attendees here. So this is how you store your email addresses. So if you're collecting random email addresses from business cards or from people manually writing them down on a piece of paper and you typing them up, then this is how you want to be storing them. You can also export from something like Yahoo Mail or Gmail or Hotmail or Live Mail or one of these kind of web-based email programs, and you can export, and when you export, the email addresses will come out like this. They'll come into an Excel document. So you've got one column for email addresses, you've got one column for first name, you've got one column for surname, and in this case, just for the purposes of demonstrating something to you tonight, I've put you all into the states that you're coming from. So then I've got it in Excel, and I'm going to save it as a CSV file, comma separated values. So comma separated values is just a type of Excel file, and it's the format that we need for anything to do with email marketing, for uploading lists. So it's just .csv, comma separated values, and it's a type of Excel file. So I'm just clicking save and continue, and then I'm going to close that. It always asks me to double save everything with a CSV file. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. And then I'm going to click this giant green button here, and I'm going to start creating a list. So I'm going to call it Webinar May 30, and I'm going to keep it as single opt-in, which is the most basic and easy way of adding people. It just means that people aren't obliged to confirm their subscription when they sign up to your list. So I'm just going to click on create list from there. So creating a list is the first thing you need to do. Everything starts with actually creating the list. You can change the name or the type of the list there. If you decided, later on down the track you actually wanted people to confirm, you can change that to a double opt-in. And then we're going to click on either of these giant green buttons here to add the subscribers. So we can manually type them in, but that's a very slow way of doing things. Much easier to just do it like this. So click on my file, click on open, and you can see I've uploaded it there, and then we've got our email addresses, we've got our first name, so I want to click on the down arrow and choose first name and last name. Now here's our state, so we need to create a new text field for that, and I'm just going to call it state, not sate. So that's a text field rather than a numerical field or a date field, and then click on that giant green button. So this is one of the reasons I love this tool, is there's not that many options per page, and what you need to do next is always really big and bold and obvious. So you can see I've deliberately left a few mistakes in the file so that I can show you how easy it is. So say, for example, Diana@wudaoyoga.com. There's some funny little things from copying and pasting. and I can just simply go like that, and it tells me afterwards that that's been saved. So when I clicked on out of there, it says 3 saved, and now we've got 10 rather than 7. So click on that giant green back button and you can see how kind of straightforward it is when it kind of directs you what to do. So now I've got a list and I've got names in the list, always good, email addresses. So I'm in this list and subscribers, so you can see there's really not that many options. It's quite a straightforward design. It's got a lot of sophisticated functionality, but the design is totally simplistic and clean and really easy to use. So list and subscribers, anything related to list and subscribers is under here, and you can see all kinds of stuff in this. When I open the list here, you can see all kinds of different options on the right side of the page, including the ability to add a form to your website. So grow your audience relates to actually people signing up. So we've got a few options here. We can add a subscribe button. We can link to a subscribe page, which is where somebody actually leaves your website. It opens up a new page after they click on subscribe on your website, and that's a subscribe page where you can customize it with your logo or whatever. This is actually a little bit more sophisticated and probably preferable, which is to copy and paste a form into your actual website. And then if you were doing something like a networking event or some event where you had a lot of people, like a trade show, yoga festival, Reiki love-in or something like that, you could hire an iPad. You could get really groovy, hire an iPad for a day, and you could add the subscribe form to your iPad. So that would be a pretty impressive way of collecting email addresses on the fly, and you wouldn't have to do anything afterwards. There wouldn't be any manual data entry because everybody would be added directly into the tool. And then you've also got your subscribe on Facebook button here, which is how you'd start collecting email addresses through your business page. So all possible. So we're still in the list and subscribers. You can see where we are here. This is called breadcrumbs. Just basically, it's kind of like Hansel and Gretel, the story of Hansel and Gretel, so that you know where you are. But we can simply skip straight into this tab here, which is create and send. So we're going to do our very first email now. I'm going to click on that giant green button, get started. I'm going to call it webinar demo. And I'm going to call it something, the subject line, of course, I've laboured long and hard over one of the most important parts of sending an email. I'm going to simply copy a web page for this email newsletter. So want to grow your business is going to be the name. Actually, I can do better than that. Ready to grow your business. Now name, you can type in your whole name, you can type in your business name, you can do a combination of both, which is what I like to do, or you could transition from your personal name into your business name. Your email, you always want to fill this out with a valid email address, because hopefully after you press send, people will immediately reply and say, yes please, book me in, let's go to Bhutan. I'm going to click on that giant green next button, and I've got 2 templates in this particular account. I'm going to use the 30 Steps to Business Building Brilliance template. So you can, say for example you had a once a year retreat in Bali or Thailand or somewhere lovely. You could actually have a separate template which had a gorgeous image up the top, and it looked totally different from your website, so that would be possible. So click on next here. This is also where you click plain text if you want that as well. So this is it basically. This is the engine room of the email creation, and you can see on the right side of the screen you've got the email. At the moment it's empty, and on the left side of the screen, once I click on edit, this is where the editor tool is going to open up. So one of the reasons I absolutely love this tool, and I've used a hell of a lot of tools over the last 5 or so years, actually longer than that, because before I started working for myself, I used to send email newsletters on behalf of corporations. I've used a lot of tools, and one of the things that is quite common, unfortunately, is that somebody breaks the design when they're creating the email. It's quite easy to do with a lot of tools. You enter an image that's too big, or you put your cursor in the wrong place, and all of a sudden you've got this really wonky looking email with, like, it's way too wide and the image is sitting over here and it's all looking really, really weird. That's because somebody's inadvertently broken the design. So the great thing about this tool, and one of the reasons I love it, is that you cannot break the design. So all of this is out of bounds, and the only bit that you've got access to is this part here. If you had a right side design, a right side column or a left side column or whatever, obviously you'd have access to both of those. But you can't break it. You can't put in a giant image and it looks all wonky doodle. It just won't happen. So that's one of the reasons I really like this. So I'm going to click on the edit button, and I'm going to say 30 days to business building brilliance. Oh, not days, steps. I changed the name. So I'm just going to copy and paste just for the purposes of demonstrating this evening. I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to get rid of that because that was actually the name of the image. I can click bold here and I can up the size. So hopefully a lot of this looks quite familiar to you. For example, you can see bold, you can see italic, left aligned, center aligned, right aligned. You can change the text color. You can change the size of the font, which I just did then. You can put in a numbered list or a bullet point list. And then we've got the very exciting insert button, which we'll get to in a minute. And then you've got source, which you don't tend to need to ever touch unless you're a geeky kind of person and you want to do something funky, but that's not really needed. So I'm going to start off by just saying hello, and then I want to put in first name. So I click on that insert button that I was referring to, and I want to put in personalization, and I want to put in first name. So next to the email addresses, like you saw in the list, next to each email address is a first name. So if there isn't a first name stored against the email address, and there were a couple of email addresses that had no first name in it, then you can actually add a fallback. So you can see the bit of code. This is a bit of code. This won't actually appear as is in the email, but it says first name, comma, fallback equals, and that's where my cursor is automatically placed. Now, if I don't have a first name, I can put in fallback equals Yogi, and that means if there's no first name, it just says hello Yogi. So there's no comma after here, which is always good because you don't want it looking a bit weird if you've got no first name and you've just got a space and a comma. So we want to put in a call to action. So read more, or find out more, or book now, or inquire now. Any of these are calls to action. We want to make it stand out a little, so stand out a lot hopefully. So I'm going to bold it. I'm going to go back to my page. I'm going to copy, Control C to copy, insert, and then link, and then Control V to paste. And you can see on this add link little pop-up that comes up, I've also got email options in the same thing. So I can either paste in a URL, a web page, or I can actually type in an email address, and I can even type in a subject if I wanted to make things really easy on myself. I wanted this message subject already filled out. But anyway, we're using the link rather than the email. Then we click the green button for insert, and that's now our active hyperlink. You can see on the right side of the screen. So I'm going to save out of that, and you can see on the right side of the screen now you've got the first part of the email newsletter. So this little kind of floating, I don't know what you call it really, floating doobie whacker, this is where the fun stuff happens. So I call this a block, and I can just click on add new, and you can see the options there. So this first block that we just went through together, this was a text only block. There wasn't an option to add an image there. So if you had some stunning image of a panorama of the ocean, for example, or some gorgeous retreat venue you were planning on taking people to, you can use a giant full width image, which will go one side to the other side. But I'm going to pick a left aligned image, and I'm going to add a next paragraph. I'm going to call it acceleration, so just copy from there, and I'm going to paste it into here, cut out acceleration, paste it into title, so you can see that's automatically formatted. It's purple in this case, of course. And you can see now that I've actually got the option to add an image. So in that previous block, I didn't have that option. So in this block, I've got title, I've got image, I've got description. So I'm going to click on choose file, and I'm going to add 30 steps acceleration. And then you can see when I scroll down, I've got a left aligned acceleration image, and I can actually make that a hyperlink as well, which is pretty groovy. So lots of people go to click on an image, they assume that an image is a hyperlink, so it's always good to add a hyperlink if you can. And I can also add alternative text for this image, which is optional. It's not necessary, but it just means that if somebody's got their images turned off, if they're reading the email newsletter in their email program with the images turned off, then they don't see that. So if you give it a quick and simple description, such as acceleration, then they have some clue as to what the image is all about. So if you wanted to get really smart, you could say click here, you could say click display images to see me, or something funny like that, and you might just humor them into turning on their images. So as you can see, you can't actually see that there. You can only see it if the image is turned off. So I just want to show you another quick thing. What do I want to show you? I want to show you how to do something like if you know, what shall I write? If you know someone who would like to grow their business, please click like to share this on Facebook. So this actual email template that I'm using, it has the social share buttons up the very top here. It says like, tweet, and forward to a friend. But you can actually, in addition to that, you can embed social sharing within the email. So you can use like, or you can use tweet. So in this case, I'm going to click like, and you've got a couple of options here, which is pretty exciting. So you can actually click the like, clicking the button will like this campaign, which means that the person reading your email who clicks that button shares your email with all of their Facebook friends. So that's a great way of upping your readership. The other option is you can actually get them to like a page. So that means that you can ask them to like your Facebook page. They can click the like button. You've got a new Facebook fan, and they're still reading their email newsletter. So they haven't left and gone wandering, lost into Facebook to go diving down rabbit warrens. They're still reading your email newsletter in their email program, and you've just gained another liker. So that's a pretty funky option. I'm going to click insert. So you can see now we've got two options. We've got one block, we've got two blocks. Now this one doesn't have an image. Like I said before, it was text only, and I've changed my mind and I've decided I really do want an image on this first block. So all I do now is I simply go add new, and I go right aligned image this time, and you can see how it's opened it up directly under. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy from above, and I'm going to paste down below, and then I can copy even the title, and I can paste the title in here. So I can choose my file. I'm going to choose this picture, click on open, and we should see an image just there. So now I've got two identical blocks. The only thing that it hasn't copied over is that link, so that's easy to recreate. I can just click on that, and I can go down here, make it bold and prominent, click on insert, and paste my link in there, and then click on that green insert button. So I'm just going to up this as well, make that bold, up the size, maybe 12, looks like 12 is the default. Click on 14 and then click save. So you can see now I've got two identical blocks, except one of them's got an image and the other one doesn't. So I'm going to delete that by simply clicking on that little trash bin. So you want to be a little bit careful with that, because that trash bin, there is no undo. Oh, sorry, look at that. It's so brilliant. There is an undo for a moment. So you've got two blocks here, and say you decide, okay, I'm not sure which one should go first. I'm still mucking around, still playing, and I'm not 100%. You can actually pick up the block and you can move it around. So you do that by clicking on that funny little icon that has all the up, down, left, right arrows. And you just pick up the whole block, and you can see now, you can see now that the acceleration's at the top and the 30 steps is down the bottom. So I can kind of experiment and move things around, shuffle things around. Okay, so she's going to stay at the top, I think, and that's going to stay at the bottom. Now I'm pretty happy with this, so I'm just going to sign off now, and I sign off by simply opening the bottom block, placing my cursor at the very bottom and just saying something like, sincerely, Brooke McCarthy. And then I'm going to up the size a bit. Click on Save Changes. So I think it's looking pretty good. I'm going to click on the green preview button at the top and then click on Define Recipients. So you can see it makes it really clear what your next step is. There's always these giant green buttons, and there's not very much on any given page, so you're not kind of crowded with options, and you kind of tend to get confused when there's a lot of options around and you're getting distracted by things and you're thinking, do I click this or do I click that? So you can see now we've only got one list as it stands in this particular account, and that's the webinar. And then you could also manually add a couple of subscribers if you just wanted to send it to a couple of people. But I want to show you another little trick. So we're going to go back into lists and subscribers, and you remember when I uploaded the list, I had stored states next to people's email addresses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to segment the list now, and I'm going to mail to particular states. So the reason we would do this is that we don't want to bombard people, that we don't want them receiving the same message essentially over and over again, unless of course that is actually what our strategy is. So by segmenting our list, by creating custom fields such as state or client or inquiry or retreat or class or consultation or something like that, you can actually segment based on custom fields. So the custom fields has to come first, and then we create the segments out of that. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So we've got all subscribers, we've got 10 subscribers. I'm going to create a new segment, and I'm going to call it New South Wales Start Building Segment. So create the first rule based on, we want to base it on the state, and add rule. So you can see on the right side here it says 10 active subscribers. When I click on New South Wales and I save and refresh count, I've now got 4 New South Wales people. If I go back a step and I create a new segment, I can create South Australia, for example, and create that first rule based on state, and state equals South Australia, save and refresh count, and you can see 3 from South Australia. So then I go back to webinar, I go back to segments rather, and I want to do Victoria. First rule based on state. Put in Victoria, and you can see 3. So hopefully that should add up to 10. Yep, everybody had a state against their name. So 4, 3, 3. And the other thing too is you can trash these segments, and you're not actually trashing an email address. You're only trashing a segment. So don't get too hung up on that. You can store all kinds of information against an email address, and then you could segment accordingly, and you could segment according to multiple things. So they need to be in New South Wales, and they need to have paid, and they need to be registered by such and such a date or whatever. And you can segment a small number of highly targeted people in that way. So going back to create and send, so I can jump into different options on the screen, and I never have to worry that I haven't saved things properly because there's an automatic save function. So you never have to worry, that your changes are going to be lost, because they won't be. So you can see it says campaign webinar demo. That's just the working title for me and you guys, rather than the subject matter. The content is defined, so it's not an empty template. It does actually have information in it, copy in it, but the recipients aren't yet defined. So I'm going to open up that by just clicking on there, and it says snapshot, it says campaign and sender. So if I wanted to change my subject line, if I wanted to change my from address, or even the name of the campaign, I could just click here and do that, but I'm quite happy with those pieces. What I do want to change is I don't want to change the content. If I wanted to change the content, I click on that. What I do want to do is I want to add recipients. So click on define recipients, and then you can see New South Wales, South Australia and Victoria. So there's the name of my list, and if I had more than one list, I could have a whole bunch of different options on the page here. So I could click on all subscribers. If I had no segments, I wouldn't have these options here, obviously. I'd just have this list here. So I'm just going to click on New South Wales and South Australia, and I'm going to click next. So there should be 7 in total. And you can see a snapshot here. So this is where people, generally speaking, start to get a bit nervous. They're a bit afraid to proceed because they're afraid that they're going to be sending a email to their entire list before they're 100% ready, and you don't have to worry about that. There's going to be ample warning before that happens. So I'm going to click on test, and it's automatically pulled in Kerry at Wake Up Wellbeing's email address. Now, Kerry is not going to receive this email. What it's going to do there, it says here, send the test using a random recipient's details to test personalization. So remember, we put in first name, we put in the custom field first name. So it should draw Kerry from that email address, but Kerry won't actually receive it. And it's just a way for us to test our first name, our personalization. So I'm going to mail it. You can send it, you can keep sending tests forever and ever, well, maybe not forever and ever, but you can send tests for quite a while and not pay for it, and see how it works. And it's always highly recommended that is indeed what you do. So I've just sent it to Brooke at Yoga Reach, and you can see here it's arrived. I'm going to click on display images so I can see the pretty email. So this is the email. So the first thing I'd want to be doing is I'd want to be clicking all the links, because that's pretty much the most important thing in the email. So I want to click on here, I want to make sure that's working. I want to click on here, make sure that's working. Can I like it? I don't want to click on that because I will actually share it with Facebook, and I don't want to do that yet. Now this is not a hyperlink, so I might like to go back in and turn that into a hyperlink. You can see when I hover over it, I don't get a little hand. I've still got an arrow, whereas if I hover over this, I get a little hand. So the links are working. They're all opening the page I want them to be opening. So that's all good. And then the second time, after I've clicked on all the links and made sure that they're working, I want to read it. I want to see that, yes, it does say hello, Kerry. It has pulled out the personalization. And I want to read it through and make sure that there's no typos and that there's no problems with the copy. And then I want to go through it a third time, and I want to read all the subheadings and make sure the headings and the subheadings all make sense and all say what I want them to say as effectively as possible. And then, see, I've got oh, look at that, I got a typo in sincerely. And once I've checked and double checked and checked and double checked again, and I'm totally ready to send, I click on next. Now remember what I said before, you don't have to get nervous because it tells me again this will not send your campaign, so I'm given ample warning. So I've got two options here. I can deliver the campaign immediately and it'll send me a confirmation email when that's been done, or I can deliver it at a time in the future, which is great. If, for example, you're going on holidays or you want to get really super organized with your marketing, you can set the date, you can set the time zone, and then a confirmation email will be sent to you when the campaign has been sent. So that makes things much easier. So I'm going to click on deliver the campaign now, except I'm not actually going to click this button because that means I'd have to pay. So it would also mean that you guys would receive an email. So clicking this button will immediately deliver the campaign. So you can see how you're given ample warning, and you don't have to be scared to proceed because you will know exactly what you're doing at any given stage. Now if I click send, the next stage I'm going to be taken to is the payment page.